you want to, or you just want them right here?
Well, also, marinated, probably better.
Not good enough, yeah, yes, sir.
All right. I think I've done all the sound systems on, and I'm going to record too, on my little, whatever, so. Because I don't have a copy of it.
Okay, great. And I'll pick up.
Yeah, that would be super. Chairs up there.
Before we start our meetings, we like to open with prayer and salute to the flag. Do we have a minister or someone from Holiday Island would like to do that for us? Nita, would you do that for us?
I didn't hear you.
Would you open with prayer and salute to the flag for us?
Bow your heads, please. Dear Lord, we thank you for the day, the blessings you've given us, Lord. We thank you for the freedom to be in a courtroom where opinions can be expressed, Lord. Please have your spirit be with each one of us today. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. You may be seated. Now call the meeting to order. It's 9 o'clock. Today we have in the county court at Carroll County, Arkansas, Western District, Incorporation of the town of Holiday Island. Ken, you want to speak first? Would you swear him in, Miss Connie?
I think our attorney was going to read it.
Judge, may I approach the bench, please? Good morning, Judge.
Good morning.
My name is Justin Eichmann, and I'm an attorney along with Holly Shattuck. She's an attorney in my law firm.
Mm-hmm.
We are from Springdale, and my law firm is Harrington Miller, it's a mouthful, Harrington Miller, Kicklack, Eichmann, and Brown. It was really nice to see the sunrise this morning driving up to Berryville. The daylight savings has provided us that opportunity to be here. But we appreciate your time this morning, and for everybody who's here from Holiday Island. My law firm, as I mentioned, is located in Springdale, and I represent a number of cities throughout the state of Arkansas. I'm the city attorney for Cave Springs, for Tinytown, for Johnson. We represent Lowell, West Fork, Elkins, a lot of smaller towns in northwest Arkansas. And then I work with the Arkansas Municipal League defending cities and counties kind of throughout in the Arkansas Association of Counties, defending cities and counties throughout the state of Arkansas. So it's great to be up here in Berryville with you here today. And I am here today on behalf of the Holiday Island Citizens for Incorporation. And that is a unincorporated association. It's a group of citizens from Holiday Island community who have a desire to incorporate that area for a number of reasons that we will talk to you about today. I know that you are well aware of that because you had a hearing here back in around the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, for a petition process that came before you at that time from essentially the same group. That particular petition that came to you was a little bit different than the one that's here before you now. The biggest difference is that first petition asked you, as the county judge, to order the incorporation, and that had different standards. The one that's before you now is asking you, as county judge, to set an election to let the people in the community of Holiday Island make that decision. And that's a pretty big distinction. For one thing, what that will mean is that certain concerns that you had 2 years ago when you were reviewing this petition about whether there was a suitable plan for incorporation will be able to be addressed by the voters. And that is the plan should you grant the ability to have this ballot measure placed on the November 3rd ballot. Then the idea is directly after this meeting, community events will begin and a discussion in the community will start where the plan for incorporation will be discussed. And the voters of Holiday Island will get to vote, either vote yes or vote no. But if you recall, the previous petition had a problem with it, and that problem was the proximity of the town of Beaver.
Yes.
That problem has been addressed by the Arkansas State Legislature in a act last year. It's called Act 932 of 2019, which removed that barrier, that 3-mile barrier requirement, and basically allowed us to proceed with this election method if the area that we intended to incorporate was over 1,500 in population, and that's what we have in this very situation. So the state legislature last year passed a law which removed that barrier and altered that requirement and allowed us to go forward with this election process. So on Friday, we submitted to you a brief that had a number of arguments about the law that I'm talking about here today. And attached to that brief were a number of affidavits from 3 individuals, and those 3 individuals are here today, who can speak about different parts of this incorporation. One of those individuals is Ken Mills, who I'm sure you probably know everybody in this room, but Ken Mills, who's right here. And then another individual is Dan Keith, who's right here, and another individual is Wes Philly, who's right here. And so, and then also in this room, amongst others, are members of the committee, and I'll just use that word committee instead of saying the Holiday Island Citizens for Incorporation. It's a little easier just to say the committee. So, as I mentioned, the previous petition method proceeded according to Arkansas Code annotated 1438-101, and that was the method in which they were bringing you a petition and said, Judge, you create this city. And that petition had some problems. This petition is proceeding through another method, and that is in Arkansas Code annotated 1438-115, and that's what we kind of refer to as the election method. What that requires are these items. It requires that we coordinate with the Arkansas Secretary of State's office, their GIS office, to ensure that we have a map and a legal description that is right and proper. And that was done in this case before the petition ever started. In fact, we have a letter in the brief that's before you today from Arkansas GIS dated September 17th of 2019, affirming that the legal description and that the map are in fact correct. So we have that in there in the record. After that was done and affirmed, the various members of the committee collected petition signatures throughout the town of Holiday Island. There is a threshold requirement in that law, in that election law, petition election law, that the petition must be signed by 25% of the qualified voters of the territory that is seeking to be incorporated, and that's what was done in this case. The petition was submitted to the county clerk in November of 2019, and the sufficient signature threshold, the 25% threshold that's required, was certified by the county clerk on December 17th of 2019, and that certification is also in the brief that you have before you today. Pursuant to law, at that point, this public hearing was set. Our office contacted your office and found the appropriate date, which was today and this morning at 9 o'clock, and that's why we were here today. And then, according to law, publication notice of this hearing was published in the Carroll County News for 3 consecutive weeks in both editions. And we have the affidavit of publication from the newspaper for both of those. Pardon. I'll wait till that passes.
Y'all have cell phones, please turn them off.
So, in according to law, notice of this hearing was published in that newspaper for the 3 consecutive weeks, and that proof of publication is also before you. The other requirements for this petition were that the name of the proposed municipality be addressed, and that name be sufficient to identify it as opposed to other cities in the state of Arkansas. In other words, we couldn't call our community Springdale or Little Rock or Oak Grove. We have to have a unique city name for the state of Arkansas, and I believe that has been done. There is no other city in our town in the state of Arkansas that is called Holiday Island, the town of Holiday Island. As I mentioned, there needs to be a map and legal description of the property. That's been done and been certified. There needs to be, according to Arkansas Code Annotated 1438 101B, proof that the population is greater than 1,500 people. And we've been able to do that through 2010 census data that's been submitted that shows that this area exceeds that population amount. And then finally, there's one other requirement, that all of these requirements that I just went through are right and proper. In other words, have we met these requirements? If these requirements are met, an election is set, and that's why we're here today, which is different from the previous method, the petition that came before you, where you had to make that determination, and therefore, I know, because I've read your order carefully from April 3rd of 2018 that denied the petition to incorporate, that you had some concerns not only with the proximity to the town of Beaver, but also to whether there was a sufficient plan that would be sustainable, that would show that a new city of Holiday Island would be sustainable and be able to continue on into the future. This one's different. This allows the voters to make that choice. However, what we have here today, if you want, are people who can testify. In other words, for the last year since your order, this committee has been doing that work. And this committee has hired legal counsel that is experienced dealing with Arkansas cities, such as myself and others in my law firm, Holly, Tom Kicklack in my law firm, who work with cities all across the state of Arkansas. They've also done an extensive amount of work with the Arkansas Municipal League. They've gotten advice from Municipal League attorneys and staff. They've consulted Municipal League publications on how this process works, and they developed a plan. And what that plan is how this town would begin, how financially this town would operate, and how it would work with a really pretty unique situation where there's a special improvement district within this territory that does a number of the services. And so that plan is before you. That plan is nothing more than a proposal, and it can't be anything but a proposal, because as you know, plans change, especially with cities or counties. Things happen, disasters happen. Revenue comes in, that's a little more. Revenue comes in, that's a little less. There's a pothole. There's an animal problem. Things come up. But what we believe that this plan shows is that the town of Holiday Island would be viable, that the town of Holiday Island would have the support necessary to go forward. It would have legal counsel experienced in municipal matters. It would have help and assistance from the Arkansas Municipal League. But it would also have the cooperation and the support of the board of directors of HICID, of the Holiday Island Special Improvement District. And that's reflected also in a resolution that's before you, and that's Resolution 2020-3 from the HICID board, which gave its approval to this process here, to put this matter before the voters, in which expresses the willingness to work together to making sure that services are efficient and that this method would work. So, Your Honor, I have a question for you then. We have here we can I can put witnesses up on the stand and have them go through testimony that would confirm all this that you have in front of you. Ken Mills, who's here today, can testify to the statutory requirements in order for the election to be called, and can do that here today. We also have two other members here, and that's Dan and Wes, who can speak to the other matters that will be really decided by the voters. But I can put those individuals up on the stand today, should you wish to hear from them, and you find that to be necessary.
You can answer my questions, or they can either one.
That would be fine. Well, if it's okay with you, I'd like to proceed with would you want me to put Ken Mills on the stand, or do you want to ask him some questions?
Unless you want to answer them.
I can certainly answer any questions that you have, sir.
Okay. You said you read mine. I've read yours extensively, too.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Very much. I noticed on page 2.
Yes, sir.
That the territory proposed had to have 1,500 inhabitants. And it shows that the total population is 2,373. Whereas the lots 12, 13, 19, 24, 25, 28 through 34, this doesn't show on this map. Are they assessed and do they pay assessment to Holiday Island?
Your Honor, I would have to have one of the gentlemen behind me come up and answer a few of these questions like that. My understanding is that the description that is attached to the Arkansas GIS certification of this matter was prepared by an engineering firm called EIS, and that description is a meets and bounds description, which is different from the loss of
yes or no, is it in Holiday Island? Do they pay assessment, or is it not in Holiday Island?
I'm not familiar with those lots and blocks, so let me turn around and get yes. Can either Dan, are you able to answer that, being on?
I am not
Would you
familiar
swear them in,
with
Tony,
Watch
please?
come forward.
Do you want me to just?
Ken's the one that wrote this.
Yeah, I can bring up Ken too.
Yes,
Let me do this. Ken, why don't you come on up first?
Okay. Sir, I'll need to swear you in. Sir, do you so solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I do.
Morning, sir.
When you say total population of Holiday Island and then leave these lots out, are these lots listed in Holiday Island City?
The GIS map,
I know what that says.
well, I know, it said, it covers the total SID district.
Mm-hmm.
There are no...
Are there lots in the city?
They should be, sir. I mean, I don't know, lot 37, I don't know where lot.
You might bring up a red flag to me if they're in it.
Well,
How can you take the total count of it? And I'm not trying to be contrary.
I know somebody probably asked you this question. Our district manager is here, Lawrence Blood, and he deals with this all the time. The boundary that we established follows the exact boundaries of the district of Holiday Island, the suburban improvement district. There were, everything in the district was included in the proposed incorporation.
Do you want to let Fleur on to you?
Sir, do you so swear or affirm that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Your Honor, my name's Lawrence Blood, I'm the district manager for Holiday Island Improvement, okay? I had a part in creating this map and working with the GIS department as well as ESI.
I'm not interested in that, and I'm interested in the question.
I'm not familiar with those lots, but I can tell you, sir, with absolute certainty that every single lot that was in Holiday Island Suburban Improvement District is included in the proposed boundaries for the city. The outside boundaries are identical. I'm sorry, sir?
Why were they left out of the map?
They're not, sir. The unit blocks and lots are identifications that were developed by the developer when he platted Holiday Island. What you're looking at in the map and the legal description is the outside boundary of the entire, it encompasses the entire area. The unit lots and blocks are subsections of that outside area. So the description that you have there, if you were to review the order when HICID was originally developed, that was the starting point for that legal description. It just was updated, and every lot...
Is it in there now?
Yes, sir. Every lot is in there.
So you took the total of Holiday Island population and left out something. I don't understand it.
Okay, I think I understand where you're coming from, because if you look at the census, it will tell you that the population is one thing and the population that's being reported is something different. And that is because the census designated place is a geographical statistical area developed by the Census Bureau. And that is geographically larger. That encompasses Highway 23, Highway 187, which has population. The proposed district of Holiday Island is something entirely different. That's a proposed boundary for the town or for the suburban improvement district.
I understand that.
The Census Bureau does a larger area for their statistical purposes.
Let me ask you another question. These people that own these lots in the city that don't live there, are they going to be able to vote on this?
No, sir, they will not.
How come?
Because they're not qualified voters in Carroll County or Holiday Island.
Do they pay assessment?
They do, sir.
And that don't qualify?
No, sir, it does not. They can vote in the suburban improvement district election.
Thank you.
Your Honor, can I mention something further? With regard to the specific lots that you were referring to, I would like to perhaps take those down and...
It's in your file.
Okay. The ones that you mentioned, I don't have those committed to memory, but it would like the opportunity. There is a statute in this section that allows us to, permits us to supplement and amend as necessary. I would like to confirm the facts about those lots and do that to you in a letter, just to make sure that your question is answered. I don't have every lot and block committed to my memory right now, and I would want to look that up and just verify to be sure. But that, I believe that the testimony here is that the meets and bounds legal description encapsulates the area of Holiday Island, and that was affirmed by the Arkansas GIS, and that we meet that 1,500 population threshold.
I'm not against Holiday Island being a city. I want everybody to have equal and fair treatment. If you was a landowner and didn't live there and paid assessment, I'm sure you wouldn't feel like you'd been treated right if you couldn't vote. That's my feeling. I don't mean it's the law. That's my feeling. I wouldn't want you to do it to me.
The requirement is, sir, the requirement is you have to be a registered voter within this area to vote.
I just told you my feelings. I know what's required.
I mean, we have to go by the law. I mean, we cannot, regardless of what we do.
Let's move on to something else.
Okay. Sir, can I go ahead and go forward with the testimony of Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You want me to stay?
Yeah, I want you to stand right here. Is this okay if we do this way? Okay, for the record, even though we've already mentioned his name, can you state your name, please?
My name is Kenneth Mills.
Yes, sir.
Morning, sir. Glad to see you again.
Good to see you.
Are you...
That'd be at the restaurant, but
It's been a long battle, sir.
yeah.
Are you familiar with the Holiday Island Citizens for Incorporation?
Yes.
What is that group?
It is a group that was formed in 2016 to initiate a process of incorporating the district of Holiday Island into a municipality.
How long have you been on this committee? You're a member of this committee, correct?
I'm a member, and we started in 2016. However, it was just a group until we went through this new process and found out that we had to register with the Arkansas Ethics Commission, have a name, and submit all, monthly reports, et cetera, keeping track of our expenses, income, et cetera.
And as I mentioned earlier, you were involved, the committee was involved with the earlier petition to incorporate, correct?
Yes.
And I described kind of the differences between that attempt and then this attempt, one being a petition to the county judge to decide that incorporation and the other being an election. Did that accurately summarize that general situation?
In 2000, when we did this in 2017, we would have liked to have used the election process, 1438-115. However, it had a clause in there that said we had to have a population of 4,000, which we could not meet, therefore was not available to us. And so when we went back the second time and had the statute changed, we asked the legislature to change that so we could use that process because we think it's more, well, let's see. It allows the people to make the decision rather than you have to make a decision, and it's not, we have total participation, from the people.
Why does the committee, or why do you feel that incorporation of Holiday Island area is necessary?
Well, Holiday Island was incorporated in 1970. We're going to have our 50th anniversary this summer. Suburban improvement districts were not designed to last forever. It should be a natural progression from the SID to a municipality because the SID statutes are very limited. A SID has no, they call it policing power, which means you can't originate any ordinances regulating building codes, which is one of the things that we think we really need. You cannot have a police department. You have no enforceable. You cannot originate or enforce codes. It's very limited. The other thing is the financial viability of the community. We like to, the statute for SID has a rather cumbersome method of collecting fees and they're not taxes really, but there is into when that will sustain the district. And so we'd like to transition from that to a municipal tax, the city property taxes, et cetera, and so that you can make sure that you have some resources there to keep the community going.
I'm going to hand to you something that's labeled Affidavit of Ken Mills. Are you familiar with this document?
Yes, sir, I signed
Okay.
that.
Here, why don't you take it in your hand for a second and flip to the second page, if you would, or third page.
Third page. Yes.
Is that your signature?
Yes.
On there? Okay, do you recall signing that affidavit?
Yes, sir, last Wednesday.
Is everything true and correct that is contained in that affidavit?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask you about a couple things that are within that affidavit, and then we're going to hand that affidavit to the judge, even though the judge, you have the same copy there that's in your brief. You said, did you mention what your role is with the committee?
No, I did. I'm chairman.
You're chairman, okay. So as chairman, were you involved in the coordination with the GIS office
Yes.
for the necessary legal description and map for the community of Holiday Island?
Yes. Yes, I was. We turned that over and to your law firm. We negotiated with the office. They verified this as of early.
Would it have been in September of
The last fall.
2019?
Yeah. Just before we started, while we were developing the petition to make sure that we were right.
Were you involved in the effort to then gather signatures for the petition?
Yes, and we had a kickoff meeting the first week in October, and we had very good attendance, and we started the petition then, and we finished it up sometime like mid-November, and the county clerk asked us to hold it for a couple of weeks because they were in the process of getting ready for the primary election, I think it was. And so I think we delivered it to the county clerk the first week of December, I think.
Okay. And did the county clerk certify that petition?
Yes.
Did the county clerk find that there were sufficient petition signatures as required by the statute, to your knowledge?
Yes. And she did cooperate. I mean, when we withheld it, I mean, they were very responsive in getting it certified.
To your knowledge, did the petition contain the names of those authorized to act on behalf of the committee?
Yes.
Okay. To your knowledge, did the petition contain the name of the proposed municipality?
Yes, it is the town of Holiday Island.
To your knowledge, did the petition have a map and legal description that was attached to it?
Yeah, there was quite a discussion back and forth whether we could be a town or a city of the second class based on the recommendation of the municipal league and our law firm. We decided that, the way to go was because the town lets you elect councilmen at large, and a city of the second class, you have to have established wards. And so the process is, they recommended was we incorporate as a town, have a city council elected, and the city council then can establish wards based on population. And so the general election in 2022 then would elect councilmen by wards, like a lot. And we were in favor of going that way, but there's no way, because the council has to set up the wards, and if you don't have a council, there's no way to get it.
The intention was to ascend to a city of the second class after incorporating as a town. Okay. Within the affidavit, there is a certification from the county clerk showing that the petition had been certified. Is that a true and correct copy of that certification to your knowledge that you received? And let's see here. After this petition was certified, were you involved in the process to get this hearing scheduled?
Not really. We left that to our lawyers.
But you're here today at the hearing, is that correct?
We're most grateful for your response in doing that, Jeff.
And then two more. to your knowledge, there's an affidavit of publication of this hearing in the Carroll County News for 3 weeks, 3 consecutive weeks. Was that act performed?
Yes, and again, I looked at it, and it was, I think the requirement was we do it for 3 weeks. We did it twice, two times for 3 weeks, so.
The last question I have is, in your affidavit covers the issue of the number of inhabitants. We talked about the 1,500 inhabitant threshold, and there's census data in there for 2010 that shows that threshold is exceeded. To your knowledge, do more than 1,500 inhabitants, hold on, please. To your knowledge, does more than 1,500, does Holiday Island have a population of at least 1,500 people?
Yes.
Okay.
Somewhere around 2,300, I don't know the exact figure.
Okay. Your Honor, did you have any questions for Mr. Mills?
No, sir.
Okay.
You answered them, Lawrence answered them for him.
I'm sorry, sir?
Mr. Blood answered them for him.
Yes, sir.
Questions I had.
Thank you.
All I know is we made every effort to make sure that the incorporated area included the district, because
I understand that.
we did not want to have one area outside the district or vice
Make every effort to be sure it's right, too. I'm not against,
So, we did everything.
not against nobody.
Your Honor, the other 2 witnesses we have go to the plan and speak to matters that are really not required by the statute for the election method. But if you wanted to hear them, I could bring them up as well.
It might be good for the public that's here.
Yes, sir.
That might more understand what they're wanting to do.
Yes, sir, happy to do that.
I read it over, but probably they haven't.
Dan, would you please come up here?
Sir, do you solemnly swear to affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And, Your Honor, I've labeled Ken Mills' affidavit as Exhibit A, and I'm just going to hand it to you. I know you have a copy, but
I got a copy of it.
do you mind if I put that there, to make sure it's on the record? Thank you, sir. Can you state your name, please?
Dan Keys?
Dan, are you familiar with the, what we've been referring to as the committee?
Yes.
Okay, are you a member of the
I am
committee?
a member of the committee.
How long have you been a member of the committee?
Since shortly after its beginnings in 2016.
Okay, and are you familiar with the Holiday Island Special Improvement District?
Yes.
How are you?
Suburban Improvement.
Excuse me, Suburban Improvement District. Are you affiliated with that district?
I'm a board member on the Board of Commissioners.
You're a board member on the Board of Commissioners.
Correct.
How many board members are there?
5.
And when were you first elected?
I'm in my 5th year on the board,
And how long are your terms?
3 years.
So you are approximately, are approaching maybe 15 years of service on the Board of Commissioners?
No. I've been on,
You've
I'm
been
in
on
my
5
second
years.
3-year term.
So you're not talking about 5 terms or anything like that?
5 years.
So you're doing about 5 years of service on the board, okay. Is your, and just curious about your role on the board, is that separate from your role as a member of the committee, is that correct?
I'm on the committee strictly as a property owner and resident of Holiday Island.
Okay, and are you employed, are you retired, what is your current?
I am retired.
Okay, what was your previous employment?
I ran manufacturing plants for a couple of multinational corporations.
Okay, I'm going to hand you something that's titled Affidavit of Dan Keys. Are you familiar with that document?
Yes.
Did you sign and execute that document?
Yes.
Okay. Is everything to your knowledge true and correct that's contained in that affidavit?
Yes.
Okay. You heard me earlier mention Resolution 2020-R3. As a member of the HICID Board of Commissioners, are you familiar with that resolution?
Yes.
Can you describe that resolution and its purpose to the judge?
Yeah, in short, the resolution states that the Board of Commissioners was supporting the idea of putting Incorporation on the 2020 general election ballot. We supported that initiative.
And describe, if you could, what the Suburban Improvement District, their plans should the town of Holiday Island be incorporated. So we're imagining that it's put on the election is successful. What are the plans, to your knowledge, on how the Suburban Improvement District would coordinate with the town of Holiday Island?
So the Suburban Improvement District would, if the community incorporates into the town and eventually the city of the second class, it is the board's understanding that there would be a shared responsibility for providing services for some period of time, either short-term or long-term. There has to be a transition process where things that are done by the city right now will transfer to the city, and it's the board's intention to work cooperatively with the city in executing that transition, whatever the plan is.
Okay. Do you believe that transition would take some time?
It could take several years.
Yeah.
Because the city initially wouldn't have the revenue sources sufficient to provide all of the services. So until that revenue stream is established by the city would continue to do certain things.
In your opinion, can the HICID continue to provide those services alone, without a town? Can it continue to provide those services to the community members?
For a period of time. The way that 50% of the revenue in Holiday Island is generated from assessments, which the judge referred to, that the property owners pay assessments out there. That assessment is based on what's called an assessed benefit, which is a kind of a complicated process that most people, even maybe most property owners out there, don't understand. But my best analogy of it is that it works like a mortgage with a declining balance. You start out with a certain amount of money that's established when the assessor sets the assessed benefit, and then every year you make payments against that. The property owners make payments against that initial balance, and we can charge 6% against that, but we usually spend more than 6% in order to make the budget. So whatever the interest won't cover comes off the principal. So you have a declining balance that will eventually go to zero. Once that goes to zero, then the district can no longer issue assessments, so 50% of their source of revenue is gone. There's different dates kicked around about that. In my affidavit, I say 2032, whereas some of the other projections say more like 2035 or something like that. That's because in 2032, there's a trigger point. The law says that you can't assess more than 10% of the original assessed benefit in any given year. So we are projected to hit that trigger point in 2032, where we would be limited in how much we could assess, because the assessment can't be more than that 10% number. So from that point on, we'd be restricted already in raising enough revenue to provide all the services. Shortly after that, within probably 5 years, the balance goes to zero, and at that point we wouldn't be able to generate any revenue anymore. So it's not a matter of if we're going to transition to something other than should, it's a matter of when.
In your opinion, and as a board member of the Suburban Improvement District, is incorporation of the town necessary?
It's the only viable proposal that's been made so far to, as an alternative to, as a way of assuring the long-term financial viability of the community.
Mr. Keyes, in your affidavit, there's also a document that's attached as an exhibit called the Plan for the Incorporation of the Town of Holiday Island. Are you familiar with that document?
Yes,
Were you involved in the creation of this document?
yes.
Can you explain the process for developing this plan?
Well, I'd started out by doing a lot of research as to what's required of the city, and the possibility for interlocal agreements between the city and the SID, so that we could be, legal in what we were proposing. I got a stack of manuals from the municipal league that pretty well defines how to run cities, so I think we researched that pretty well.
Did you consult with attorneys at the Arkansas Municipal League and staff?
We worked directly with the municipal league and with your law firm to review the plan and make sure that we were on sound footing.
Do you believe it would be the committee's intent going forward, should this be set on, for election on the ballot, to continue to work with the municipal league and with legal counsel going forward on incorporation matters and municipal matters?
Yes.
Can you just kind of briefly describe the plan and its purpose?
Well, when we go through all of the basic functions, like who would be responsible for the roads, how the road program would be funded, how fire protection would continue to be funded. We put together a proposed budget. So it defines what responsibilities are solely the responsibilities of the city, which would be generating ordinances and code enforcement and things like that. What responsibilities would be strictly the responsibility of the SID initially, which examples would be the road department and the amenities, not the road department, but the sewer and water and the amenities. And then where we would have shared responsibility, which would be road maintenance and improvement and fire protection.
Is this plan set in stone in any way?
No, because the committee has no authority to make commitments for future elected bodies. The real transition plan will have to be worked out by whoever gets elected to the city council and whoever gets elected to the board of commissioners. It's just a vision of what could be, and one that was well researched and well thought through.
What do you plan to do, should we go forward with the election? What would you plan to do with this plan? Would you plan on sharing this with future elected members of the town? Would you plan on having forums with the public on this?
Yeah, we definitely plan on having public forums. In fact, we tentatively scheduled the first one for April 21st, and we will have multiple public forums, large groups, small groups, whatever would work. And since a lot of the people what I would call stakeholders in this, and the judge alluded to this also, you have registered voters in Holiday Island that are stakeholders. You also have non-resident property owners that are stakeholders in what we're doing here. So we would probably do a mailing to all of the property owners to make sure everyone's informed as to what's going on and what the plan is.
And this was referred to earlier, but the non-resident, non-voter property owners, they elect the board, is that correct?
They elect the board of commissioners.
So they elected you, is that correct? Prior. And so let's say that somebody comes up with a great idea, or says that something is wrong in here and needs a change. Would there be the opportunity to change that plan?
Absolutely.
As you go forward?
Absolutely,
And would you welcome that?
we would welcome input and advice. This is a set of ideas. That doesn't mean that there aren't other good ideas.
Well, Mr. Keyes, I don't have any more questions for you. Judge, did you have any questions for Mr. Keyes? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I'm going to label this as Exhibit B. You did. I'll put it right there. Next up is Mr. Westphal?
Sir,
Yes.
do you so swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Can you state your name for the record, please, Mr. Stilley?
Wesley E. Stilley.
And what is your involvement with the committee?
Well, I've been serving on the committee since 2016 also, when the present committee started. I was involved with the group before too, but at present, I'm also treasurer of the committee,
Okay.
so I'll handle the funds.
How long have you lived in Holiday Island?
A little over 11 years.
11
We
years.
finished our move here in 2008, the end of 2008.
Where did you move from?
Northwest Iowa.
And what did you do in Northwest Iowa before you moved here?
I was a certified public accountant there. In a public accounting firm, I had 3 partners in a medium-sized city. And in my last 10 years there before retirement, I was the senior partner and the managing partner.
And did you work on public finance, like issues with financial, issues with cities?
Yes, we did. We provided audit and accounting services and advisory services to cities, counties, school districts, and other governmental bodies, any others. There we would, of course, deal with budgeting matters, reviewing for compliance with budgeting requirements, worked with grants, federal grants, state grants, federal loans, and that also always involved compliance and testing to see that all the requirements were complied with.
So, you were a CPA in Iowa,
Yes.
correct? Are you still a CPA here
Yes, I
today?
am still a certified public accountant. I'm licensed in Arkansas, but I restrict my practice to tax work now.
Okay. Are you familiar with this document that's titled Affidavit of Wesley Stilley?
Yes,
Okay. Did you prepare and execute that document?
yes, I did.
Okay. Are the contents of that document true and correct? You can flip through it there. Okay, attached there is Exhibit 1 with the proposed
Yes,
budget.
yes,
Did you prepare that proposed budget?
yes, I did.
Okay.
And it was taken and worked with the other budgets, I think, that are in your Mr. Keys discussed, and it's taken with a little different format, but the same numbers.
Let me ask you a little bit about that. How is this proposed budget prepared?
I would say initially, we looked at the district budget for 2020 would be, and looked at that as far as what the district had, and then went through. The first thing I did is estimate the revenue. I obtained reports from the state treasurer's office. They sent me a listing of all the distributions of all the different funds and all different sources for all the cities and counties in the state. And so I used those to calculate the turnback revenue using because that division of funds is all based on population. So I took cities similar to what Holiday Island would be for that population of 2373, I think, and projected the state turnback funds, and then also worked with the, I think, county assessor and the Carroll County assessor and tax collector, got tax values, property values to determine what property tax revenues would be turned back to Holiday Island. And I'll comment of course, the turnback funds, those reports that I got from the state treasurer's office were for the fiscal year ending June 30th of 19. So if we proceed with this, then those will be updated. We'll get the updated information for the June 30th, 2020 fiscal year, probably in July, and the revenue figures can be updated, so
let me jump to the end then, because, and then I'll come back. But, is this budget set in stone in any way?
Well, not exactly, no, because it will be updated when the new information is received, and when the new revenue numbers are determined, we will update that.
So that's revenue. What about the expenditure side?
Well, we went through, I think on the expenses end, to the best of our ability, estimated what expenses we would have. We communicated with the municipal league on some issues as to what would be required, and then we estimated what, for instance, attorney's fees would be, what we were projecting paying rent to the district for use of some of their facilities and for staff sharing, and just went through and did the best we could to estimate those expenses.
And just to be clear, this would be a proposed budget that a town of Holiday Island could use for 2021, correct?
Correct.
Is it your understanding that the mayor of Arkansas City has to submit a budget to a town council or city council by December 1 of each year?
Yes.
And would this be the type of proposed budget that a mayor could use in order to start that process, should the town be incorporated?
Yes.
And is it your understanding that the city council or the mayor could amend that budget should they see fit?
Yes.
Okay. Do you consider this to be a conservative or an aggressive budget in your estimation?
I guess I would use the term reasonable, maybe, that not aggressive or too conservative, but just one that we think we could work with that would hopefully reflect what would actually come up.
What about the term realistic? Would you use the term as a realistic budget for the proposed town of Holiday Island for 2021?
Yes, I think so.
Based on the budget, your experience as a CPA, your review of these financial matters, would the town of Holiday Island have enough revenue to get it through its first year?
Yes, I think so. In our budget, just for information, we're projecting that from the funds that would be available right now that we know of from tax turnbacks, we could pay expenses and have $372,000 available to pick up for costs that we would take over from HISED or rent paid HISED or cost sharing for clerical staff and so on, that there would be, we could provide them some relief. And in addition, there would be about $31,000 left to add to an ending reserve balance for the city, so it would have something to start with the next year.
Would that budget have any additional taxes or fees to be levied against Holiday Island community members?
No, there's no new taxes in here. These are all, the turnbacks and everything are all from taxes that everyone is already paying. So there is no new taxes. We're in effect eliminating the double tax that we're paying right now, because we're already paying all these taxes that are not coming back to the district, and then the district's having to make it up with increased assessments.
There's on the expenses line, there's a line for wages, and
Yes.
I was going to ask if you could just explain that line in particular.
Well, that is an estimate for a part-time treasurer, recorder, or clerk, I think, I'm just calling it a city clerk, but it may be a recorder in Arkansas, but part-time for the treasurer, recorder, and also something for a marshal, for a city marshal, if it was determined that there is a need for a marshal.
Okay. In your proposed budget, is there any salary for elected officials in the first
No.
year? So it'd be a volunteer?
We're planning to involve a volunteer.
Okay.
I guess I might comment too, well, go ahead.
No, go right
Well,
ahead.
I was just gonna say, back to your question about, can the city survive on this, or can it continue? And I think, yes, it can. I think, as Mr. Keyes commented, it's, long-term, it's the district that's, has the problem, because improvement districts are meant to end after the benefit that they provided originally.
And he mentioned that those assessments will go away, and that time is exactly when is somewhat variable, but in your estimation, you heard his explanation of that. Do you agree that the suburban improvement district is facing that fiscal issue?
Yes, I do. And of course, then, when that happens, which I agree with Dan, it will, the question is just when. But as you said, it's like your house mortgage. If the assessments that the district charge goes up, which it usually does every year because costs escalate, as you pay more in assessments, that pays that balance off sooner. So, and when that happens, then that just accelerates the time when they will not have funds to provide fire and protection and maintain the roads and all of that kind of thing.
Well, I think you addressed my very last question. Was we talked about this being viable for 2021, and in your opinion, is a town of Holiday Island financially viable beyond 2021?
Yes, I think so. It can continue on, and, while this continuation goes, then the city and the district will have to work together to plan for that time when the district's not gonna be able to levy assessments anymore.
Okay. That's all the questions that I had for you. Judge, did you have any questions?
I could compliment you on a good budget you put together here.
Well, thank you.
I have doubts if you could make it work no more than had in there.
Well, we think we should be able to.
I understand.
Okay.
We're pretty slim picking.
For a while, yes,
Thank
it
you.
will be. Okay, thank you.
Your Honor, I'll approach it, put this one on the bench as well. Your Honor, that's the witnesses and the testimony that we had for you today. A couple things I guess I'd like to close with. The election method is established so voters can make the decisions on whether what you heard sounds like a good and viable plan or not. And what we would like is the opportunity to allow the voters to make that decision. We believe that this is an important issue for the area that needs to get resolved.
We're not ready to close yet. I think we have individuals here that would like to speak.
Absolutely.
I think they deserve the opportunity to have 3 minutes. Anyone in the audience would like to speak, raise your hand and come up and be sworn in. You have 3 minutes.
Your Honor, if possible, if there are questions for me, could I arrive at the very end and make just a very brief closing?
Are you going to check that out on what you agreed to? And the people that discussed it in the Senate. I want to know what they're requesting for town. If that has 1,500 voters. I don't think you can count the total members of Holiday Island. It's not figured in it. I think you need to take the map where they want to become a town and see if that's 15% of the voters.
Yes, Your Honor.
And when would you like to get back with me on that?
Your Honor, if I could have a few days, I could, a few days, by the end of the week, I could,
5 days?
5 days would be sufficient. I can get that submitted to you, and I appreciate that opportunity.
Okay. And another question. Is it possible for all the people that lives in Highfield to have a copy of all this proposal, the budget and everything?
Your Honor, can I bring up either Dan or Ken, when you come up? The judge asked if it's possible for everybody to have a copy of what we've produced here. Is there a website or something where we can...
We have a website ready to open up, and this document, the plan is on it.
Everybody don't have a website. Is it possible? Is it possible if they wanted?
We can make one available if they want to pick it up,
If
or
we make it
we'll make a mailing, whichever.
Your Honor, how would you like for people to be able to get, if we make it accessible on the website, if we have copies for people, how would you like us to do that?
I get a lot of complaints that people's not really informed on that. So I think it's very necessary that everybody has a chance that wants to read what you're wanting to do, your budget and everything, where it'll be clear to them. Because you don't want a bunch of hassle.
But we will conduct a hearing where we invite everybody to come, and we will give that out on a overhead projector. We will put it on a website. We will make it available to pick up.
We'll make lots of copies.
And non-resident people, we will mail it to them.
Only fair that everybody knows.
That's our total.
A good understanding, saves a lot.
Our thought process, though, is why go through this expense if we're not going to get it on the ballot? That was it.
I understand that.
Because you're beating a vote drum.
Your Honor, we will make sure that there's many different ways where we can get this information out.
I'm not against nobody. If you become a city, solves all my problems in the future. Why would I want to dig at something to keep that from happening if it was within the law? It don't matter what I think, it's what the law says.
But
and I'm undecided today, but as soon as you give me that letter I asked for, I'll give a report a week to 10 days after that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
And we'll allow the members of the public who want to come up and speak. But I appreciate being up here before you, and please, if you need me to ask any question, I'll pop it right back up and do what I can. Thank you, sir.
Looking for you later.
Thank you, I will. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Anybody wants to speak, express their opinion, come up.
Okay. Sir, do you so solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm Jim Yates.
Please state your name.
I'm Jim Yates. I live
Could
on
you get the mic, please? I'm kind of hard to hear, and maybe some others are.
I'm Jim Yates. I'm a resident of Holiday Island, Cypress Point Lane, and I have a study here that Holiday Island actually commissioned and paid for that I think hasn't received the emphasis it should. May I approach the bench?
You're there.
Okay. Not good at this. Retired engineer. This is, I would like this to be recorded.
You have 3 minutes, so you need to hurry.
Okay. And I also have copies. I'm reading from a 2015 study. It was performed by the National Golf Foundation consulting arm. And there's some interesting points in it. The mission statement of the National Golf Foundation is NGF exists to foster the growth and vitality of the game and business of golf. HICID commissioned this study. The bid was $24,000. Some discussion in subsequent board meetings at HICID that I didn't attend indicate it came in over budget, maybe at $30,000. But the important points, and I have copies of this to distribute later, the important points is the best predictor of public golf courses' success is the number of golf courses per 18 holes. This is highlighted. I'll give anybody who wants copies. I've added only some handwritten material and some highlighting. The best predictor of a golf course's success is the number of golfers per 18 holes within a 10-mile radius, with 4,000 identified as the key number for projected financial stability. Okay? If we're going to have an incorporation, golf courses will be an issue, and financial stability is obviously desirable. Holiday Island has 400, which is 10% of what this organization, which is definitely not an anti-golf, it's the National Golf Foundation. They're not anti-golf. They may be neutral, they may be biased for golf, but they say you need 4,000 for successful public golf. We have 400. The state of Arkansas has 850. Holiday Island, that's twice Holiday Island Country Club. And we've had golf course closures, 2 in Little Rock, 1 I understand in Huntsville, although it's kind of on hold for sale. So we have poor demographics, very poor demographics for golf, and golf is in somewhat of a decline. You read about that in the paper. The numbers are not increasing, for sure. So I think it needs to be emphasized that Holiday Island paid for a study. It says that the demographics of golf are difficult, and whether we incorporate or not, I myself signed the incorporation petition. I see benefits and negatives to incorporation, and I have no objection to a vote personally. But if, whether we incorporate it or not, the basic facts of the scarce population of golfers in the area of Holiday Island needs to be addressed. And that's all. I'll hand some of these out with the rest of my time, if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Come on up.
Good morning, Judge.
Do you want me to? Yes. Ma'am, do you so solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Honorable Judge Barr, many residents of Holiday Island have legitimate concerns over the 10-member incorporation committee's process to properly acquire signatures for incorporation of what appears now to be the town of Holiday Island. We feel the entire process is flawed, it's inappropriate, and it's been done in bad faith. This incorporation committee has consistently refused to provide or share any verifiable information on just exactly what their committee is seeking, other than incorporation. Just sign the petition to get it on the ballot, residents were told, and then the committee will tell you, was their mantra. The Holiday Island Citizens for Incorporation's filings with the Arkansas Ethics Commission for this ballot question states whether to incorporate Holiday Island as a city of the second class. There are at least 10 filings on record, and their mission has never changed. This committee is made up of 10 upper-income owners on a specific area of Holiday Island who are trying to force their wants and needs on a community of 2,300-plus residents, many of whom have no idea of their intentions as of this meeting today. The committee filing with the Arkansas State Ethics Commission states its purpose as whether to incorporate Holiday Island as a city of the second class. This does not seem to be their purpose. Information was given to residents in 2017, including pamphlets, PowerPoint presentations, and there were also 3 meetings held. This was followed by their failed attempt in 2018 to incorporate. That attempt was to incorporate into a city of a second class. We've been told it's the same, and it evidently is not. Those residents that have gotten any information have been told by committee members in writings and social media and quoted in newspaper articles that Holiday Island residents will be voting on a city. Arkansas Code 1437-103 states, if your population is between 500 and 2,500 residents, you shall be deemed a city of the second class. With 2,300 plus residents spread over 4,500 plus acres, there's no doubt that Holiday Island, if incorporated, must be a city of the second class with wards.
3 minutes is up, thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Ma'am, do you so swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you. If you would please state your name, too. You've got the other one there. If you'd please state your name as well.
Rebecca Sherman.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning. I don't do well with 3-minute time, so I prepared it all in the package for you that I'd like to enter. I will start in the very beginning of it, though. I have a problem with the fact that this is nothing but misinformation over time, over more time. 1970, Holiday Island became a SID. On the county website, it says so, and it says incorporated. So can you incorporate twice? Which is what it's sounding like part of this is. So within all this is a whole lot of documents, and I do not agree with a petition, an election. I don't even agree with the duality. And I have it all here in this packet for you, what I'm going to turn in. And it's all notarized, because this is when I get to say, thank you for hearing me, and my 3-minute time beeper didn't go off.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Who's next?
Sir, do you so swear to or affirm that you will, that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Morning, Judge.
And your name, sir?
My name is David Jerome Bischoff, and I live at Holiday Island. And I'll make this as quick as possible. The first thing I'd like to say is I'm not against incorporation. I have been for it since the beginning, as long as it is done right and the public is informed and given all the information they need to make an intelligent decision. Of the information that's been presented, in my review of the documentation, there seems to be some fatal flaws. One, the statutes say it must be a city of the second class based on population. Also, the filings that Chairman Mills put in, he wants city of the second class, yet each petition says it's town. So everyone that signed the petition signed for a town. And the petition should be declared invalid because it's like declaring apples to oranges. It just simply doesn't pertain. Second, the other issue that the esteemed attorney has said about the accuracy of the maps and the description. I'm sure they are accurate based on GPS. However, there are legal certified surveys done outlining all of Holiday Island, describing exactly what Holiday Island is, which come up to 4,000
The Incorporation Committee's figures say there's 4,838.67 acres. HICID's official numbers are 4,569 and 2/10 acres. That's 270 acres more on the Incorporation's figures. That's an awful big error. That's about the size of Beaver Township. Where is that? Why is that? How is that? Holiday Island as a municipality or as a district cannot afford to have any more responsibility or liability than it already has. Why aren't actual numbers being used to verify it as demanded by the state? The difference between a city and a town, the representation is elected at large by the total population. City, its demands is by wards from people within that ward.
Thank you, you're out of time.
And that would be equitable representation.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next.
Sir, do you so solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Morning, Your Honor. My name's Rick Chambers, and I live in Holiday Island, on the island. And I don't have any legal arguments here. I have a personal perspective and a personal opinion. I've made some notes here. I probably won't have time to go through all of them, but I would like to present them to you at the very end. My wife and I moved here and built a house in around 2009. We've lived here full time for about 6 years now. In that time, I've seen my assessments continue to increase. Our cost of living has increased. I came from central Arkansas, where I found that things were much cheaper. We enjoy it up here. We've invested everything we own here, sir. I am very concerned about two forms of government. I really am. Let's see here. Like it's been pointed out, there's been little to no information presented to residents as yet. I would hope that in the future that there will be, but it will all be verifiable information. Because unless it's verifiable, it's just an opinion. And discuss both pros and cons. Okay, we've heard testimony and statements this morning about some of the good. Well, what about some of the bad? What about some of the potential that could be bad? Let's see here. We talked about 40% of our residents are non-resident property owners. I'm concerned for them. They're normal people. They may have vacation property, but they're normal people. They have a vested interest in our community. This concerns me a lot for them because, as with residents, their expenses and cost of living could possibly increase as well. I'm concerned again about the possibility of us being able to sustain ourselves as a city. In my opinion, our primary source of revenue for this city is all of us sitting in here. That's scary to me because code enforcements and things of this nature is going to cost money. Well, where are we going to get that money, sir? We're going to get it out of my pocket. I work for the state of Arkansas Highway Department in Carroll County. My pocket's not very deep, sir. It's pretty shallow. My wife is retired. She's disabled. We can't afford a continuing increasement in cost of living. It will literally force me out, one way or the other. And then I'm at the will and the whims of whatever property values are. I'm concerned about the role that each one is going to play. A city or a town has been pointed out, which I think is odd, but a city or a city, what role is each one going to play? How is this property and responsibility going to be divided up? How are the financials going to be handled? This scares me, and I think it opens up a lot of liability issues. Let's see.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up.
All righty. Thank you for your time this morning, sir. Please.
Anyone else?
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Morning, Your Honor. Mike Simpson, 81 Valley Drive in Holiday Island. My wife and I have been residents since March of 2015, so we're celebrating an anniversary of sorts this month. My comments to you, and I'll present these in written form for the record as well. My comments basically mirror exactly what other residents in Holiday Island have said regarding the issues surrounding incorporation and the role of the Holiday Island Suburban Improvement District Board of Commissioners of this. One of the documents I have here is a one-page questionnaire that captures many of the items that have already been discussed and presented this morning. These are concerns that citizens have. The following pages contain signatures of Holiday Island residents asking those same questions, wondering when are they going to be answered. Now, the Incorporation Committee has made a point of saying we will present public forums after this issue goes on the ballot. My issue is the Board of Commissioners for the Holiday Island Suburban Improvement District have had ample opportunity, despite verbal and written challenges, to provide information on how this is going to work with two forms of government. So far, that Suburban Improvement District has refused to do that. That's the basis of my comments, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Sir, do you so swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Judge. My name's Al Selleck. I've been with the Incorporation Committee since 2016 also. I was one of the people that went around and collected signatures from the people. And although there's several people here this morning that claim that nobody actually wanted to sign it, I'm sure you realize that we got signatures of 25% of the voters. In our previous petition, we had signatures of over 50% of the registered voters in Holiday Island. Due to concerns last time, when I got people to sign the petition, I gave them this piece of paper that says Incorporation of Holiday Island. The purpose of this petition is to have the issue of Holiday Island becoming an incorporated city appear on the November 3rd, 2020 general election ballot. Registered voters living within the limits of Holiday Island will be eligible to vote on the issue. If more than 50% of the votes received favor incorporation, Holiday Island will be incorporated as an incorporated town. Candidates for mayor, recorder, treasurer, and aldermen, which have now been changed to council people, will be elected during the same election. We recommend that you read and understand the petition before signing. Once incorporated and upon verification that the town's population falls between 500 and 2,500 residents, the city will be reclassified as a city of the second class. Also, when I talk to these different people, if any of them asked me questions, I was glad to answer them. If anybody had a question about the petition, I'm sure they noticed on the bottom of it that there was 4 people's signatures, my home phone included. I did have some people call me, and I answered questions that they had. And I also had a lot of people that are very eager to sign this. I had people that said they've been waiting for 20 years for Holiday Island to incorporate. So I would appreciate your consideration of putting this on the ballot so that the people that live in Holiday Island can decide for themselves whether or not they want to be incorporated. We have a tentative forum scheduled for April 21st. We pay for the forums out of our own funds. I'm sure the people that are against incorporation will be sponsoring forums of theirs to present their opinions and their sides. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sir, do you so swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
How you doing, Jeff?
State your name, please.
My name is Joe Lawrence. I live at 87 Woodsdale Drive. I'm a property owner and also a business owner at Holiday Island. I've had a storage business for 16 years. And I understand from this meeting this morning that more is going to be laid out on the plan that we haven't seen yet, but the plan is going to be laid out. My thing is they discussed the legal aspects, the legal hoops of getting us incorporated.
but I haven't heard much about the practical. I've seen a bunch of numbers here. How about, just a suggestion, and they may have done this, sitting down with Hot Springs Village, Bella Vista, and finding out the do's and the don'ts about being incorporated, what they did and what they wish they wouldn't have done, or what they wish they would have done. Why reinvent the wheel? I pay 7 assessments on my business at Holiday Island, okay? So hearing that there's not going to be any new taxes sounds really good to me, but these people are working for no salary, and you implied that their budget was kind of on the lean side, a little flimsy. And like one of the other gentlemen brought up, 40% of the are non-residents. What happens if we have a blip in our economy and these people they drop their locks and they don't pay their assessments anymore? They talk about revenue streams. People don't build cities. Businesses build cities. Since we've been there, 3 banks have closed, over 30 businesses in 16 years, and three businesses have changed ownership because, Sunfest went bankrupt, the hardware store went bankrupt. So my thing is, if towns if businesses build towns, so this magical incorporation, is that going to change human behavior? Is that going to change people's spending habits? Are they going to still go to Walmart in Berryville? Are they still going to go to Rogers and spend their money? What's going to make them magically start shopping at Holiday Island and supporting the businesses? Because that's what they're talking about. They're talking about revenue streams. So revenue streams from what? Okay? So if any of these things falter, this 40% non-resident, this we don't have to pay any more new taxes. Yeah, that sounds great, but once we incorporate it, there's no turning back. Okay? If we don't have the money, it's going to be more new taxes. Okay? And I already pay a lot of assessments and a lot of taxes.
Thank you, sir. You're thanking God.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Sir, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you. If you wouldn't mind stating your name, please.
Yes, sir. Alex Sterosi, 158 Holiday Island Drive. My statement here today is based on approximately 8 years of attending Board of Commissioners meetings. I've gotten a lot of information over that time, and my statement has to do with incorporation. I think it's misguided, ill-advised, and unnecessary at this time. It's misguided because of incomplete business plan by this incorporation committee, and for the second time. There are too many unanswered questions. Statements very often are based on assumptions and speculation, has been stated before here, unverifiable data. Their timing is wrong because this proposal is being rushed through without due diligence, which refers to what I just said. More time and research is needed to develop a truly comprehensive plan that needs to be evaluated and determined by all people with information. The wrong reasons. Assumptions are made about incorporating qualifying for state and federal funding, and some of that is assumption. And yet our district manager affirms every month that we're solvent, we're financially in great shape. But the motivation for incorporation is preponderantly based on wanting more money. The assumption that Senate Bill 510, which is now tabled, will pass at the next legislative session. That would have a great influence on what happens at Holiday Island. And they also want to maintain the status quo. Incorporation would maintain the status quo because of more funds. And that means maintaining exorbitant and unsustainable subsidy for one amenity that directly benefits few property owners and also benefits a lot of people who don't live at Holiday Island, while sacrificing infrastructure maintenance and benefits that benefit all property owners. And that means roads, water, loss, sewers, etc. It's ill-advised because of insufficient planning, as stated before, result in unknown, unanticipated consequences. As an example, how are we going to have two governments operating simultaneously at Holiday Island? That's not going to work.
you mentioned earlier that so many property owners have not been made informed about this. 42% of the assessments that come to Holiday Island are paid by people who do not live in our community. They live everywhere else. They have never been told about this effort. Not twice. Not the last time, not this time. They have no knowledge of this. And they've been ignored because they can't vote on it. And not all of the 24% of the property owners who live at Holiday Island are going to vote. Not everybody always votes when an election comes up. So they may dictate how our future is. I suspect we're going to have internecine conflict. That means mutually destructive, because there's already an adversarial relationship that exists between people that want to see this happen right now and people that want more deliberation. I think the Holiday Island Board of Commissioners should mandate more open forums, a series of open forums, so that all people, including those that don't even live here, can be made aware of what's going on.
Thank you, sir. Your time's up.
Yep.
Anyone else? Come forward.
So you say solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You would state your name, please.
Carroll, Vernon Anderson, been in Holiday Island 15 years, retired Vice President of Operations, responsible for the team that set up Berryville's Huntsville, or Labarge practice, now DuCommon. So I've been involved with Berryville for a lot of years, been involved with Holiday Island 15 years. I would like to say that the main idea of a city is to have some ability to set up laws, set up restrictions on property, make sure that properties are maintained. Dogs can be maintained. We can't even maintain dogs. We had a vicious dog that attacked a woman and her dog on a porch. When the officer came out, county officer came out, he said, really, you have no ordinance? Can't do anything about it? My advice is next time the dog's on your porch, shoot it. We can't operate that way. We have to have ordinances that work that way. I've been trying to market Holiday Island, and being a CID is not a marketable thing as much as a city. People are not wanting to invest a lot of money in a home in the qualities that we need to do it, because they don't understand the suburban district. They read the papers, they see the emails, they see the neighborhood stuff, and see the negativism that's in that, and they don't understand how they can, invest in Holiday Island. I've done a lot of driving around Holiday Island, and in an effort to get ready to go to Little Rock to try to get the thing changed, there's areas where, places that I'd say are out of this world, fun there, but places that are old trailer homes that aren't being maintained, people still living in them, bottles, trash, all around it. Cats, 30 cats at least, plus running around. In order to change that situation right now, I have to live in that area, and I have to go complain, then I have to go to the planning commission, get 3 complaints filed, I have to go then take it to court myself. Planning commission can't do it, CID can't do it. I have to, as a citizen, complain against it, but if I don't live in that little covenant, right now that regulation says I can't even complain about it, even though I might have to drive by it every day. And the people in that area, no, they're not complaining about it because they're all letting their neighborhood run down. So those are all important issues. The city needs to be there to set up regulations to be able to make the thing run. Funding, there's at least $300,000 to $500,000 of money that people are already been taxed. It's going to come forward. It'll be there during that transition that we need to transition to. And that's money that you are already been taxed for your gas, your sales tax within the county. So that's funding that's not there. That's not new taxation. That's just getting your share of the money that's there that you can get a city.
You're out of time.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Sir, do you so swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you. And please state your name, please.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Dale Mitchell. I live at 4 Country Club Drive. I've owned property at Holiday Island for over 33 years. I've been a permanent resident for over 23 years. I've raised 2 sons here. It was our dream to move to Holiday Island. My wife passed away in 2013 and is interned here at Holiday Island, as I plan to be when the time comes. I have a vested interest in Holiday Island. I recently received my assessment notice from the Holiday Island Suburban Improvement District. It is sent out to all property owners at Holiday Island to collect the assessments for the year. The enclosed letter from the chairman of HICID painted a very rosy picture of Holiday Island, and I quote, "Our cash and reserve accounts have grown, and the board continues to endow the community by addressing long overdue deferred maintenance on our infrastructure and investing in new capital improvement projects." End quote. Nowhere in this letter that goes to all property owners for the collection of assessments is the proposal for incorporation mentioned. This seems like a gross oversight to not inform all of the property owners that the possibility of more taxes, more fees, more restrictions and regulations are being considered. 42%, roughly 2,143 property owners, are being assessed as off-site contributors to the financing of Holiday Island. That is well over $1 million, and I think it's in jeopardy when they find out there may be more expenses added to their assessments. 24%, roughly 1,224 property owners, actually live here and contribute $600,000 to $900,000 to the assessments, and they will be making the actual decision when it comes to incorporation. I think it only fair to inform all property owners of the intentions of a few. 34%, roughly 1,735 lots at Holiday Island, are not paying an assessment for whatever reason. These lots represent approximately $848,000 in revenue that is not being collected. I pointed this out to the HICID board in the past and have not seen any effort on their part to address this funding, which is rapidly approaching $1 million in lost revenue every year. I feel like incorporating with more cost to the property owner will only increase this loss every year. I've seen this happen before in my 33 years as a property owner. People move into Holiday Island for a few years, then they get in a position to change things that were working just fine, and shortly thereafter, they move away from Holiday Island, leaving us permanent residents to deal with whatever they created. In short, I feel like more effort should be put into addressing the lost revenue in existing lots, perhaps reviewing some of the successful practices used in the past. I think that would be more beneficial to the community than charging off into another ill-fated venture like incorporation. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Name's Ken Mills. I live at 20 Rocky Top Circle. I've been a resident of Holiday Island for 26 years. I served on the Board of Commissioners for 9.5 years. I dealt with many of the problems that we're trying to solve with incorporation. We wasted a lot of time, resources trying to enable us to control some of these adverse situations with the building codes. I talked to a developer, the man who's fixing up the old Fred store the other day, and he's doing a lot of work on Holiday Island. And there's people that, he told me there's people that want to develop and build new homes out there, but they don't want to build them because we have no enforceable building codes. We have a planning commission that says they can't do anything. I mean, if you, Mr. Lawrence there will tell you that people call him all the time about complaints that, and I dealt with these, you know, dumping garbage, vicious animals. We worked 1.5 years trying to come up with an agreement we could work with the county to have some kind of an we call it a regulation. The county court would have passed a resolution to deal with it because it had to be cooperative, and it never came to fruition because, and we've got to do this. This is not something we want to do. We want to do it for the community of Holiday Island. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, I realize this was for today to determine about putting it on the ballot. And I'm thankful for all you people that showed up. I felt like it was only right to give you a chance to speak decision yet. I will make one after I hear from the attorney in 5 days. Like to say again, all this is about is putting it on the ballot, giving you, the people, the right to choose what you want. Instead of the committee, you, the people, need to get out and vote your conscience and stop this dilemma every year trying to get this done. If you want to be a city, you need to get up and vote. If you don't, you want to get up and vote. And it doesn't matter what I think. Because if you become a city, my problem is over. I don't owe you nothing if you become a city. But in my heart, I want to be a good neighbor and I want to help everyone. But I want it to be right before the law. The law doesn't always agree with my conscience and my soul. But when it becomes a law, it's the law. So I'll let you know in a week to 10 days after I hear from the attorney of my decision. And thank you so much for your patience and being kind with each other. Right now, we're going to be adjourned, but I'd like to give you a little Paul Harvey thought for the day after we adjourn. I was driving towards adjourned at this moment. I was driving to work this morning with Holiday Island on my mind. I thought about what a beautiful paradise place to live. And then I thought about Adam and Eve. They had everything, they wasn't happy with it. They changed things. So be sure in your heart that you know that's what you want to do, if I put this on the ballot. Thank you so much for being our neighbors. Have a good day.